This is Eva Clark of Healing Multiple Sclerosis. In today's episode of the MS Personality, we're going to look at the second key, decision-making. Deciding and doing based on what is right and what is perfect instead of what you want to do or to experience. In the previous session, we saw how babies begin life telling you exactly what they want, when they want, and how much they want. They decide when they're hungry, when they're sleepy. Then as they start growing a little older, they start wanting to do things themselves. They want to take the spoon. They want to put on their own shoes, right? And soon parents need to start giving them limits to keep them safe. And babies start learning the rules. By the time they're about in kindergarten, if you guys remember, we talked about how kids can spend the whole recess arguing about what the rules are to a game and have hardly any time to play the game. But after this stage, the next stage for them to really learn, for us to really learn, is to decide for ourselves based on what we feel like doing, what we want, and what we prefer. But that won't happen if it doesn't feel safe for you to do that. If doing that might have you lose your connection. Now, as we've also discussed, deciding based on what is right or what is perfect has its advantages, right? We talked about incredible quality of work, meeting other people's expectations, making them happy customers, avoiding disappointment or upsetting others, right? However, it has its disadvantages. And let's look at those. For one, there's so much pressure to not fail that you end up overthinking or staying up at night worrying that maybe you made a mistake, that life is going to be over. And your body, of course, is receiving all this stress, just imagining what could go wrong. Being right and trying to be perfect is actually very inefficient and time consuming. Imagine if you're giving 110% on practically everything, it takes forever to get anything done and to do everything that you want to do in a day. And the problem with that is that then you don't have time for what is really important to get done because everything takes so much time. Eventually, it can lead to burnout because there's so much effort in so many places. It can actually lead to increased procrastination because you don't want to get it done unless you know that you can do it right. And so you will pre-plan in advance just to make sure everything is going to come out perfectly. And if there's not that much time, why even try to start if you can't do it perfectly? It actually inhibits creativity because in order to do it right or to do it perfect, you need to base your decisions on things that you've already done, on already established patterns. You need to stay within the box, within the lines. And actually, though most of my clients, the reason why they're trying to be right and perfect is because that's what they think others expect of them. Trying to always be right and perfect actually disconnects you from other people. For one, you're so worried and in your head trying to do it all and meet those expectations and trying to figure out what those are. And the second one is actually people don't like perfectionists. I mean, think about movies. Most movies, the heroes always have some fault in them. And they do that so that you like them, so that they're human. You can connect with them. In a movie, if there's someone who's perfect, that's that person no one likes. But at some point in your life, doing it right and being perfect was the safest solution. It might have been something that your dad really educated you and your siblings about.
Perhaps he had a horrific alcoholic father. And so in his case, growing up, it was best to do things well and to do them right to keep their dad from beating them up. And so then when he had his own kids, it made him very nervous when his kids were a little wild or just doing whatever. And so he needed to educate you to do things well and do things right. It was the safest way, guaranteed success in the future. Another one of my clients talked about moving to a new school and going from very Montessori like to all of a sudden a very private Catholic school, and really feeling pressure, not feeling like she was fitting in. So she decided that she was going to do whatever she could to be liked by the other girls. So it was all about what they expected of her, and she totally lost herself in that. In another incident, father was always angry. And so my client was always, like a very small kid, trying to anticipate what dad's needs were, because if she can keep her dad content, then he wouldn't be angry. So it was all about, what does dad expect? And his rules made things safe. And so she's always looked at, what do people around me expect of me? One of my clients discovered that her perfection and need to do it right was because her parents were so upset about her older sister and what her older sister was doing with her life, that she decided she wasn't going to be another issue for her parents. So she tried to do everything right so her parents could at least have her as, stressless as possible. So what influenced your desire to do it right and to do it perfect, and to fear failing? What was your environment like growing up? Was there a family stressor you were just trying to, make it better? Were there school stressors? Was there a lot of uncertainty, and so you needed structure, needed to try to control a little bit? Was it a new neighborhood? What might have happened for you to not feel safe to do it your way? How was that causing more stress or more disadvantage?
Because I did fall into perfection in certain areas, because that's what my family also. There were certain things that I was like, retaliation, complete. Parents are not happy with me in certain things. But when it came to school, it was easy for me. So I was really good at school, and my parents were very happy. So it was a win-win. I actually got paid like $10 for every A. I got all A's. It was easy, and I made good money every quarter. But what happened was, in a 10th grade, so I was like 16 years old, we moved to Spain. I'd always gone into American schools. It was Department of Defense. My dad was military, so we always went in Germany on the bases, right? There was a small little school. Everybody knew each other. We were from everywhere. We were all mixed races. And so I was in my turf. And in 10th grade, we moved to Spain, to my mom's country, and I went into a private Catholic school where we had to wear a uniform, where you had to wear a white shirt, and everyone had these little alligators, which I'd never heard of because I was a military brat. We all bought our clothes at the PX on the base. Like, we all had to sing Levi's for $21.99. I had no idea what brands were at that time. So that was happening. Then it was in a different language. And then even the studies are different. And then in the US, it's a lot about practicing stuff. In Spain, it's about memorization. So it's like you memorize an author and all his books, but we never read any of the books in class. So when I was told we were going to study this author, I bought some books and I started reading. By the time I got to class, I only had read one book, and everybody knew all 50 titles of his book. And it was like, what did I do? I studied wrong, right? So I was in shock. And what I thought, I was trying to do my method, my system, my perfection. It wasn't working. And what happens, I started having terrible stomach aches. It got so bad that one day I couldn't even move. And so my mom took me to the emergency room. And the doctor in the emergency room actually thought I had appendicitis because they couldn't touch my stomach. It was that painful. That's how far this can get. Fortunately, the doctor kept asking me questions. They're like, okay, appendicitis, we're going to have to do an emergency surgery. And he starts talking to me and he starts realizing what I'm going through. And he looks at me and he says, Eva, you are literally making yourself sick. He goes, I want you to tell you something very important. He goes, I am a doctor. And let me tell you, when I was in high school, I did not get good grades. And I still became a doctor. So I want you to know something. School is not that important. It is not worth your health. So you just got to tone that all down. Plus, you're in a whole different school, a whole different system. It ain't going to work. And it was a shocker. He sent me home. And the next week, I went to school and I did less. And I was just waiting for the world to come collapsing on me. I was just like, okay, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to put whatever I can remember and whatever else, screw it. And I was just like, that was the most probably important interaction I've ever had. If you think about yourself as a kid, what your family encouraged, if it was safe or not, or there was just way too much going on, or for example, there was peer pressures. If you can think of anybody in the whole wide world, for me, fortunately, few doctors realized that, the stress body response. Fortunately, this doctor did. But if there's anybody in the whole world, maybe it's you today from 2022, or your mom from today, not from then, or Mr. Rogers, or who could speak to your younger self? And what would you tell your younger self?
What I would suggest is write your younger self a letter, or maybe record it and tell her what she needs to hear. Tell her when it is important to be perfect and when it's not efficient, when it's okay for her to just try something out, when it's safe to just test it and play. Secondly, find something small like I did with my class, to test and play with not doing it perfectly. Maybe sticking the knife directly into the peanut butter without wiping the edges. Something small. I'll give you an example. This is a friend of mine. She also has a lot of issues with perfection and over controlling. And she told me that whenever she's going to go somewhere new, she takes a long time to plan and calculate how long it'll take, what she'll need to take with her, and she spends a lot of time on it. And so she decided she needed to lighten that up. And so she said, okay, the first time I go somewhere, I'm going to study everything and know everything. But once I've gone there once, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to trust that I will remember how to get there. And if I don't, if I get lost, I will just pull off to the side, text that I'll be late. I'll revisit and see how to get there, but I'm going to begin to trust myself. And she said that was how she started opening up and letting go. So find those little things. Where are you going to not complete something? Where are you going to let it go? Start with something small, something that's actually kind of produces giggles. You don't want to start with something that will actually create more stress, because remember, this MS personality is not really a personality, it's an MS stress response. So you don't want to get into stress, because that personality is going to really want to come out. So find something small. As I said, something that's just a little giggle, just for yourself. All right. So in the next episode, we will review the last of the 3 key areas to develop. treating others, everyone, as adults, able adults. I will see you soon. This is Eva Clark of Healing Multiple Sclerosis.